My name is Joran. I'm a co-founder together with Edward of IN4IT, and we do cloud and DevOps. DevOps, nice. That's in Switzerland. Whatever. The goal of this, no, but there no goal. There is no goal. We're just gonna discuss some topics of interesting things that we came across this week or last week, and when we're also participating in AWS Startup a Loft, and we meet a lot of people there, and we come across a lot of the same questions every week, and that's why we try to summarize and see, and that a lot of people have the same questions, and that's why we can handle them here in the pod in a less formal way, and we can just discuss like the questions we come across quite often. So in that sense, the topic of this week we have selected in a very meticulous way, with board approvals and stuff like that, is how we deploy applications on AWS and what approaches you can take. Like, this is a very open question, and there's a lot to be said about it. But there's a lot of ways on how to actually achieve this. And you see, like, a lot of the questions are like, how do you select the correct technology? AWS is famously known for having a lot of options on how to run things and deploy things. So yeah, like, what are the options, Ward? What do you see in the field, and what are the most successful ones and stuff like that?
So I get the question a lot. Like, I have this application that I have written. I don't really have an operations team, but how do I really deploy this application on AWS? How do I make it accessible to any of my customers? And there are lots of ways to deploy applications on AWS, but there are easy ways to deploy it and there are difficult ways to deploy it. So I always recommend to start with the easy way. And let me just share my screen to show you one of the easy ways of deploying an application on AWS. So AWS App Runner is, I find, the easiest way to get an application running on AWS. There's so many ways to do it. You can just launch an EC2, install some software on it.
Yeah.
But this should be an even easier way because it uses a more modern approach.
Okay, cool.
Like, you always have, typically nowadays, a GitHub repository where your code resides, maybe Bitbucket, maybe GitLab, maybe something else, Azure DevOps, maybe even. So your code is already there. You just need to kind of package it and run it on a cloud provider. So how do you package it? There's many ways to package it, but one of the easiest ways to package it is just by using a container, a Docker container. So if you start using AWS App Runner, it will ask you, where is your GitHub repository or where is your Bitbucket repository? So you will be able to link, just by following the UI, how you'll be able to link your existing repository, your existing source control with App Runner. You will just need to add some code to your GitHub repository to make sure that AWS App Runner knows how to kind of package it in a Docker container and then run it. So it will just kind of package your source code. It can be Django, like Python or Node.js or Java, anything that you have. You just kind of package it and you run it on App Runner. App Runner will spin up a load balancer. You don't even see it. It will spin up a load balancer. It will give you compute so it can run your container. You can even scale it. That's the easiest way to run your application. Let's say that you now have a database. Well, Amazon RDS, you can communicate from your AWS App Runner to an RDS if you need to store some information. That's PostgreSQL or MySQL. That's what most people use. So now you have already set up your application just by a few components on AWS. So it's so much easier to use something like this, where everything is abstracted for you, than trying to figure out all the components that you need to run an application yourself using EC2, load balancer, Fargate, ECS, or even Kubernetes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that we like see quite often is that people try to overcomplex like before they actually even get started. So this abstracts a lot of the like DevOps tasks and all that stuff already from the get-go and get you up and running while using those best practices already.
Yeah,
Actually,
you don't need to scale to 1 million users. This is not going to scale to 1 million users,
no, exactly,
right?
exactly. But it's also not the use
So
case, right?
it's not a use case, but most people,
Yeah,
some people think that's the use case. Some people
yeah,
think I need to use Kubernetes. I need to use ECS Fargate because I will need to scale to 1 million users,
yeah,
right? This will not scale to 1 million users that easily, or like once you have more employees, it will get more complex for orchestration, for deployment. This is just too simple. But just to get started for your MVP, for your simple application that you don't know that you will get the traction like, you don't know whether you're going to have 100,000 users. You don't need to build your infrastructure to scale immediately to 100,000 users.
no,
Once you have a couple of thousand users or maybe 10,000 users or whatever use case is, you will get funding in your startup. You will get more help. You will get your employees, and they will be able to re-architect it in a way that they can scale for the next tens of
yeah,
thousands of users.
yeah. And also, if you set it up like this, you're already not blocked by any decision that you've made in the past. So it's good to start from this and then iterate to the next step. Like if
Yeah,
you
the difference is that if you would use an EC2, because that's maybe an even easier way, if you would use an EC2, then you already have to type in kind of yum install, apt-get install,
which
Apache,
people don't,
Nginx,
like a lot of
right?
people
And
at
then
that phase
then
simply don't.
but you also already forget what you have installed on the EC2. So someone needs to come back
Yeah,
and reverse engineer what this person typed on this EC2 to make this application work. Whereas here, by using these abstractions, it also
yeah,
forces you to write in your Docker file how you have to package it, because AWS needs to know how to package it. And by using RDS, you don't not setting up your own MySQL. It's also you're not going to set up your own tools and software if you just have an AWS product and you don't really have a lot of traction yet.
oh, exactly, exactly. Because that's where a lot of people, in my opinion, sometimes try to over complex those things, and well, it just can go for the easiest solutions, especially in the MVP phase. You don't know if you're ever going to need to scale either, right? Like,
Exactly.
let's
Exactly.
hope you do. Let's hope you do. Like, that's what everybody hopes, but like in most cases, it's yeah, you have to start somewhere, and like the value of how the application is deployed is a lot less than what the application will do in the end to the end customer, or whatever it is you try to achieve, to the funding round you're trying to get or something like that. Like how it's deployed, it doesn't really matter that much in that sense that
No
if you do
customer is
it
going to
this way.
ask, how did you deploy it on AWS?
No, but it's already done in the best practices, right? Like if you
Right.
use something like that instead of like, you see a lot of people just EC2 public SSH into it, open to the world, install Apache or Nginx or whatever,
You
and
already
just
create technical debt.
yeah,
Here,
exactly,
there's
exactly.
not
No,
really technical debt. You just
nope,
use the
nope, nope.
framework that exists.
And you already
Uh,
have a lot of automation as well, with just like you push
yes.
it, it's get deployed automatically, all that stuff. While if you see in later stages, you have to invest a bit of time to actually create the pipelines, especially
You
if
don't
you
even have to use the tooling, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly.
You don't need
Which
to learn
no,
Terraform. You don't need to learn CloudFormation just to set it up.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
why it's so
exactly,
easy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. After some time, you see that this technology hits some limitations in that sense, that because it's automates so much away from daily processes and stuff like that, you sometimes run into scenarios that you have to need like have to have more control about the pipelines that you want to do checks on your dependencies and all that stuff. And then it's sometimes better to, after your MVP phase, to see what the actual needs are and then move away to a different technology instead of App Runner. And if you, let's say you take the containerless artifact, the application is already built into that. We have that artifact. where would you run it? Because it's a hot topic on where to deploy containers, and a lot of people are like Kubernetes, and then a lot of people, like a lot of other people are saying like choose the simplest technology. Which one do you think like is a better fit?
So they say, like, if you have a look on the product page of AWS App Runner, right?
Yeah.
They say build and run secure web applications at scale without prior container or infrastructure experience. So if you have no experience with containers or infrastructure,
Yeah.
App Runner is the way to go.
Absolutely.
You can scale it, and you can meet your infrastructure and compliance requirements. Like I said, it's not that easy if you do everything yourself. And even then, when you use this simple approach, you can still connect it with the database. So this is the easiest way to run it if you don't have infrastructure experience. But if you have infrastructure experience, what we often run for our customers is just to use something like ECS Fargate, where you have an ECS cluster instead of your App Runner. So this is like an old icon, but there is somewhere some new icon for ECS. But you would have kind of your ECS cluster where you then run your containers in. So these containers would then run into your ECS cluster, and then you would create the whole pipeline yourself, right? So instead of having App Runner create a pipeline, you would have to use something like Code Pipeline, which is then another service in AWS, which already starts complicating things. So this approach is more when you already know what you are doing, and you need to be in compliance as well. So are you secure by default when you run on Amazon ECS? Most likely not, because you can put all these services public. You can misconfigure your pipeline. So here this is all done for you, so it's much less likely to be out of compliance. Here, this is the more professional approach, more flexible approach. Amazon ECS, you can run it on EC2, but you also can run on Fargate. Most preferable way is Fargate. Even you could say, okay, I'm going to run instead of ECS Kubernetes cluster, which is the alternative, but that's even more complex, right? So no experience, I would stay away for that for now. You run AWS App Runner, and then later, when you feel you have outgrown it, you maybe have someone on your team that knows more about AWS, then you can start looking into the more complicated technologies of AWS, which then also give you more capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's kind of what you should be looking for.
It totally makes sense, especially like the because it bundles all the like DevOps tooling and all that stuff automatically. You don't have to have much knowledge about the Docker, about building Docker containers and stuff like that, because a lot of people are sometimes afraid of like it's like it starts sometimes becoming to look like to jump through hoops. Like I want to deploy the application, but now I have to learn Docker. Okay, I now know Docker. I want to have to schedule it somewhere. And a lot of people will recommend Kubernetes. Now I have to learn Kubernetes. So, but the application is still not deployed. So this gets around that quite easily.
And the deployment mechanism.
Exactly.
The
Like,
deployment mechanism, Argo CD, Flux CD.
Yeah.
Which maybe will this be discontinued, so you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But you spend all that time while you're just trying to launch a product that you're looking clients for. And in the end, it's like we said, it's important to know what technologies you choose, and that will help you avoid creating technical debt right from the start. And especially if you can hand over things that you're not really sure about or specialized in, and you can just like have a service that practically does those things for free, because it's like the pipeline and the building technology itself doesn't really cost that much money.
We didn't really talk about it, right?
Yeah,
what
no,
is
exactly.
The pricing of this,
because
right?
that's the next question most of the time. What is the cheapest option? How should we do it? And besides getting credits through whatever program AWS offers or whatever, but either way, you have to still pay it at the end after the credits expire. But there's still like, for example, I can imagine that certain technologies are cheaper than other ones to run to run your application with. So
yeah, so with AWS App Runner, you don't really pay for App Runner. You pay for the computer memory that you use, right? So there's no overhead. If you want to run Kubernetes, you already have to run the Kubernetes masters. If you run an EC2, you already have to run the whole EC2, even though you deploy maybe a container on there, you still have to pay for the EC2, for the storage, for the load balancer. So this is just, you pay for the computes on App Runner. They have certain pricing, which you can find here under the pricing. Provision container instances, that's what you pay for.
0.000. Yeah,
so
but
pretty inexpensive compared to something like a complex system like Kubernetes.
Yeah, especially because you don't need it in the beginning, and then you already have your costs under control. You have your pipelines under control, your DevOps technologies, all that stuff. It scales. It's not like that you have to get up in the middle of the night when the application hangs or whatever. It's unhealthy. It gets like restarted automatically. All that stuff comes right out of the box. While if you were to just have an EC2, do yum install nginx and then start from there, like you have to like service yourself, like you have to build a team around that and all that stuff. Well, it's just not needed, right? Like that's a very good insight. Especially the budget thing is also super important, because like for a company with funding, couple $100 per month isn't that much, but like if you're just trying to start an MVP, like that's already a substantial amount of money, because at most cases that comes out of the pocket of the person trying the MVP. So yeah,
it's also it gives you more time, right? If you don't have to spend a couple of $100 per month on your bill running nothing,
exactly.
you have more time to run,
and also
program
it scales
on your
to
MVP.
zero. Like an MVP doesn't need to be on 24/7 sometimes, right?
You
like
can just turn it off if you want.
Just shut it down and start with it the next day again, and then you already have the feel of how AWS operates and all that stuff. That gives you the experience if it's a good fit for you or not, and then you can see from there as well, right? But you're already there and deploying your application, which simplifies it a lot, in my opinion. So yeah, really fan of that service as well. No, excellent. So especially for the starters, this will be super useful, I think, because it's a recurring question that we get so often in the AWS Startup Loft. So I think, yeah, I think we can conclude here for App Runner for this week, and then next week we can see what the next.
We can look at something more complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm a big fan of using ECS in more advanced setups. And with advanced, I mean some larger scale applications as well. So maybe that's some topic we can go into for next week.
Yeah. Let's have a look what we can do for next week.
Yeah, nice.
See you next week then.